Good morning, everyone. On behalf of myself, the Township Clerk, and the Deputy CAO/Director of Corporate Services for the Township of Georgian Bluffs, we want to thank everybody for being here today. In the absence of an elected chair, I will now call this Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board Community Appointee Selection Committee meeting to order. That's a mouthful. Just to note for today, Audra Root from Saugeen First Nation has forwarded her regrets for today's meeting. Additionally, we have no representation from the Chippewas of Nawash at this time. On to the land acknowledgement statement. In the spirit of reconciliation, we acknowledge with respect the history, spirituality, and culture of the Anishinaabeg, the people of the Three Fires known as Ojibwe, Odawa, and Potawatomi Nation who have inhabited this land from time immemorial. We further give thanks to the Chippewas of Saugeen and the Chippewas of Nawash, now known as the Saugeen Ojibwe Nation, as the traditional keepers of this land. We also recognize the Métis and Inuit whose ancestors shared this land and these waters. May we all, as treaty people, live with respect on this land and live in peace and friendship with all its diverse peoples. On to item number 3, election of chair. I will now open this up for nominations. Does any committee member wish to be nominated chair? We have a nomination for Member Bell. Are there any other nominations? Okay, so the recommendation that Member Tony Bell be appointed chair of the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board Community Appointee Selection Committee. Could I have a mover and seconder? Moved by Member Kirkland, seconded by Member Mackey. I'll call the vote. All in favor? Thank you. That carries. I will now turn this over to Chair Bell.
Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to our first get-together on this board. We are now moving into an area for the approval of the agenda, and we're going to read the recommendation that the agenda be approved as presented. I need a mover and a seconder of that. Kirkland, and I have it over here with Mr. Mackey. Is there any further discussion on that, on the agenda? Seeing none, I will call the vote to approve the agenda. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Now, a declaration of any pecuniary interest. Does any member have a declaration of pecuniary interest at this time to declare? Seeing none, thank you for that. We have no delegations or any public question period at this time. So item 7 is the staff reports. COR 2024-004. Community appointees to the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board. That the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board Community Appointee Selection Committee receive report COR 2024-004 for information, and that the recommendations for community appointees to the joint board resulting from closed session discussions be referred to participating council for ratification. I need a mover and a seconder on that item. Thank you, and I forgot your name to say. Thank you, and a seconder. There's someone on the screen. Thank you. I can't see your name. I'll have to ask, or can you say your name so we have it for the record, please?
I'm not sure which one you're referring to, but I'm Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn, and I'm with the municipality of Georgian Bluffs.
Thank you. Thank you. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the vote.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
if the committee is so obliged, I'm happy to give an overview of the report and note
Yes,
how the applications were received.
that would be wonderful. Thank you.
Perfect. So for those of you not in the room, and for those of you that I have not had the pleasure of meeting yet, my name is Brittany Drury. I am the Deputy CAO and Director of Corporate Services for the Township of Georgian Bluffs. And since conception of this idea in 2019, have been project lead, I guess I should say, on behalf of all participating councils in the Grey Bruce Detachment area. And the chair has just brought up a good point. In the absence of noting everyone in the report, you may not know who is sitting amongst you today. So through your chair, I will go around the room and note who everyone is and who they represent. So virtually with us today, as she has already noted, we have our Township of Georgian Bluffs appointee, Councillor Kathy Moore Coburn. We also have Councillor Lori Smoky, quote, Golden, from the town of Northern Bruce Peninsula. We also have Councillor Singh Soares from the Township of Southgate. We have Mayor Jay Kirkland from the town of South Bruce Peninsula. We have Councillor Tony Bell, our chair, from the municipality of Meaford. And we also have Mayor Mackey from the Township of Chatsworth. Absent from this meeting today is Mayor Paul McQueen from the town or municipality of Grey Highland. Also absent is Councillor Audra Root from the Saugeen Ojibwe First Nation. As our clerk highlighted at the beginning of this meeting, we currently do not have representation from the Chippewas of Nawash. We did have representation. However, the representative has indicated that they need to take a step back from that at this time. So the council is reevaluating that appointment in anticipation of the April 1st deadline to have this board meet. So we do not have representation from any of those bodies today. But in sum, those will be your colleagues on the larger Grey Bruce Joint Detachment Board. Now, as noted in the report, and as I previously stated, the communication from the province has been that as of April 1st, 2024, so in about less than a month than now, we are to have our ducks in a row for this joint board to begin meeting. And that's what you'll see today. This is step 2 of the larger phase-in process that we highlighted through the larger report that you would have seen in December, January. The 4-step process, we are now in step 2. So that is appointment of community appointees. Through Georgian Bluffs, we facilitated applications for community appointees from January 10th through to February 26th. We received 17 applications, 16 of which were deemed valid, meaning they were able and eligible to hold appointment to the board. So that is our goal here today. Our goal is to review the applications and select 4 names, ideally from 4 different municipalities, to hold the 4 community appointees on the larger joint board. Following our discussions here today, the recommended appointments will be referred to all participating councils for enactment. It is the direction of the province that every participating council has to authorize the community appointee. Is there any questions?
Through the chair, just on those appointees, it doesn't matter which municipality they're from, as long as they're eligible and qualified to sit on the board. But my clerk had just mentioned there was 1 or 2 that were from South Bruce Peninsula, but one of them isn't. But I don't think that matters, does it?
It does not matter. And yes, Councillor Golden actually pointed that out to me today. I mistook one of the noted municipalities as South Bruce when it should have been Northern Bruce, so I apologize. while it doesn't necessarily matter, in order to ensure that all communities have equal representation, it would be my recommendation, and it is included in the proposal that the province approved, that each community appointee be representative of one community. So therefore, it wouldn't be best practice to have two community appointees, let's say from Georgian Bluffs. It would be best practice to have one from each of the one from the one from each of the participating detachment communities. And our goal is, by treating them on a rotating basis, at some point in the future, every municipality will have had a community appointee representative on this board. So if Georgian Bluffs sits on this term, Georgian Bluffs will then not be given priority in the second term.
Okay, so thank you for that. Thank you, Mr. Mackey. Yes.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Brittany. Will we be developing terms of reference then that indicate that municipalities that don't have representatives on this term first in line for the subsequent term?
So the terms of reference are essentially developed through the proposal that the province has already authorized. So that is the document that establishes the joint board. When the joint board meets, we will have to develop other procedures, i.e. a procedure bylaw, conference policies, etc. So we can include a formal terms of reference. The terms of reference for the joint board, being the larger detachment board, are defined within the regulations that establish the need for that board. But we can definitely formalize them through some type of procedure.
Well, now we'll do the statement regarding going into a closed session.
If I may, Mr. Chair, can you call a vote on that motion?
Oh, most certainly. Thank you. Call a vote on that. All in favor? Carried. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Closed session. At the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board Community Appointee Selection Committee, the Clerk and Director of Corporate Services for the Township of Georgian Bluffs move into closed session at 10:19 a.m. to discuss personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees. Open meeting exemption B of section 239 bracket 2 of the Municipal Act 2001. Need a mover and a seconder to move into closed. Thank you. Thank you. And thank you on the screen. So,
So moved, Councillor Golden.
yes. Is there any discussion on moving into closed session? I will call the vote. Go into closed session. Thank you all. That's carried.
So for our virtual participants, just a reminder to join the closed session link that was circulated this morning by email. Thank you.
No. Thank you. Okay. We'll take a short break. Pardon me? You can wait?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So have we been joined by Mayor McQueen or not yet?
Yes, I'm here.
Oh, well, good morning.
Morning.
We've proceeded along fairly well. So you need to know that you've joined a very good group of directors who you take a hold of an agenda and move through it. Welcome.
Well, thank you. And yeah, I know there's a good team there for sure.
Yes. So at this point, after we've moved out of closed session, I'm going to read the actions of what occurred. That the following appointees of the community representatives for the Grey Bruce Detachment Joint Board be referred to the participating councils for ratification. We have Michelle Reynolds from Georgian Bluffs, Carl Ellis from Southgate. We have Jerry, where's his last name here? Jerry Scholus from Northern Bruce Peninsula, and Nicole Martin, and I didn't write down Grey Highlands. I need a mover and a seconder for those, please. Thank you. Thank you. All in favor? Thank you for that work. The next item for us in our consideration is a date for the next regular meeting. We have that from yourself, what your thoughts are?
So if I may, the board has, or the committee has accomplished what we needed to today and has accomplished the scope of your terms of reference for establishment.
Mhm.
So it would be my recommendation that you no longer need to meet, given that the appointments have been finalized.
Okay. Go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. Through you to Brittany. Now that the community appointments have been selected, can this board function without the appointment of the Ontario representatives? We continue to do the work. Reason I ask the question is we all have our own local police services boards that we need to kind of tidy up, and I'd like to be able to know when that end date is going to be and when this new board will actually be up and function.
Go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you. So what's next? Now that we've selected the community appointees, their appointment, along with an update report, will be forwarded to all of your respective councils for their information. So that will include when are we meeting? What will that look like? What's our procedure bylaw going to look like? When are provincial appointees going to be appointed? When are we going to do the training?
Yes.
All of the outstanding questions that honestly, I don't even have all of the answers to at this moment. So in my collective conversations with your respective clerks, it's been my recommendation that you do not dissolve your current police services board structure pending further direction from the province and pending more information from me. So you will see that update report sometime between now and mid-April, depending on your respective council schedules.
Thank you for that.
No problem.
So at this point, then really, we're going to leave that open, that we're going to wait for further information to come, and that we can all put forward our comments about that upcoming date, and we'll do that when that happens. Go ahead, Monica.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just through you to the clerk, and thank you so much for explaining that. I just wanted to re-clarify for myself. So right now, we will not be meeting until further information is provided, because I have that April 1st date in my mind. So we don't know if we're going to be meeting around that time. We're not sure the next date at all at this moment, right? Just
So, a point of clarity, this group is the Community Appointee Selection Committee, right? So while you're also the council appointed members to the Joint Detachment Board, this committee no longer needs to meet in this capacity because you've fulfilled your objective as a committee. Now, when we consider the joint board, the proclamation date for the legislation that enacts that board is April 1st. However, we may have our council elected appointees and our community appointees, but we may not have our provincial appointees. That's a requirement of the board. Those 3 seats have not yet been filled, and we do not yet know how or when or who will fill those seats. So we also don't know the extent of training and the official date of said training and the official scope of said training, which is a requirement to hold a position on this board. So it is my understanding through the province that you are required to complete that training before you fulfill your seat on that board. So even though we may all collectively have our ducks in a row, being we've accomplished all that we can from our end, from the municipal sphere, we may not be fully ready to go from the provincial aspect of this board. But all of that will be addressed in the update report that all of your respective councils will see. And it would be my request from the staff side that when that report comes forward to your respective tables, you then speak to the community appointees and how we established which members were going to hold the positions on the board that you've established today.
Thanks.
I appreciate that information from Brittany. Over the last 2 or 3 years, though, if we're waiting on the province, we could be waiting a long time. The provincial appointees have taken the Solicitor General a long time, in my experience, to make those appointments. And I think if we can proceed as a board prior to that, awaiting those appointments, I mean, it's up to them to appoint, right? If the enactment date is April 1st, I think as a new board, it would be nice to start moving in that direction and, let the province fill the appointments whenever they fill them. But I'd like to start taking the training, get this new board up and running sooner rather than later, because I'm not optimistic with the province. I'm not sure if that's doable or not. Thanks.
Go ahead, Brittany.
I'm going to mind my comments because I agree. I too would like to see this board get up and running and not keep, metaphorically kicking the can down the road, because we have been talking about this since 2019. So it has been a long time coming, and I feel the board's collective frustration in that regard. I'm happy to have the conversation with the province to see if there's a mechanism by which that would allow us to move forward, regardless of the state of the provincial appointees. My only hiccup is the proposal that established the need for the 3 provincial appointees now forms part of provincial regulation. Therefore, by not having those 3 positions, we are not fulfilling the legislative requirements of the board, because selective representation is not participating. That is required to participate. And as far as the training goes, I think, and I don't mean to speak out of turn, but I would assume that the province could get behind allowing this structure to move forward in the absence of training, so long as said training has been scheduled and committed to. But those are the only two things in our way at this moment. But I'm happy to have those conversations with the province and include some type of update in that report that I'm referencing.
Kathy, please go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Just further to those comments, Brittany, and thank you for the clarification. I did attend a webinar session last week, and I have to say I was left feeling very overwhelmed. But one of the things they did say is that until we have taken the training and passed those courses, we can participate on the board, but we can't vote. So I believe that's kind of a mandatory piece. I'm not sure that we can jump ahead with a functioning board until that piece has been done. Is that correct, Brittany?
That is my understanding, meaning, the training is a legislated requirement. It's built right into the regulations
Yeah.
that establish the board. But, I'm happy to have the conversation because I know this has been a long time coming. So I'm happy to provide you with updates in that report.
Monica, you had your hand up.
Yes, thank you. So thank you so much again through you to the clerk for the information. I know that you're only trying to kind of navigate this as we are as well. So just to the point of, again, Mayor Mackey and to Councillor Kathy there, that the training piece, I think, is where I'm hoping to see if we could move forward, just because with all of our time commitments and ensuring that we will know what that training would look like. From my understanding from the readings, it could be something that may be heavier um, than normal. So just having that ability to see if we can get that going before the other meetings. So just wanted to support that if that's possible.
Thank you. Jay, go ahead, please.
I don't believe the province has even started the process for their applications on the names that they're about to have. So is there any way that we can ask the people that have applied to this level to also could transfer their names to the province for people that are interested in being the provincial representatives?
So I think my first step would be to reach back out to our provincial rep and ask how they intend to move forward with that application process. I have, throughout the however many long year term of this, heard various methods by which the province will be looking for applications. One method would be looking within the existing pool of provincial reps and appointing said provincial reps based on communities that do not have community appointed representation on the board. So in that example, South Bruce Peninsula, their provincial appointee could be up for appointment to this board. But I say that strictly based on hearsay. I have no foundational proof as to that's how we're going to move forward. However, if they are going to open it to general applications, then yes, I'd be happy to pass along any community appointee application that was interested in holding one of those appointed positions.
And just on another note, financially, how's Georgian Bluffs going to recoup the dollars and cents that you girls and your municipality has put forward? So is there, and maybe I didn't understand things properly, is there a budgeting process and the dollars coming from all the communities, or what is the procedure there?
So thus far, this has been out of the goodness of Carly and I's hearts. However, with that being said, the implementation team and I, which is, I know, Madam Clerk, we're kind of getting off the scope of this meeting here, but bear with me. The implementation team is myself and a couple of other collective representatives from your municipalities that have gotten together to say, how are we going to do this? Because if I can make a comparison, this board is essentially a new council and a large council at that. This board needs its own policies, its own procedures, its own governance model, which requires a lot of support. you all know how much support goes into your council meetings. We are looking at a same level of heavy support for this board, especially given the amount of people that are appointed. So through that update report, we will be making proposals for administration of this board, meaning assigning it a home municipality and building supports within that home municipality. Now, all of that remains unformalized at this point or in unfinal. So the collective representatives from your municipalities and I are still having those conversations, but they will form part of that update report that all of your councils will see for consideration.
Thank you. Very important. Go ahead, Scott.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. You know, Jay raised a good point. There's a lot more questions than there are answers right now. And, would it make any sense for this group to get together again to start to try and answer some of those? You know, we talked earlier, Brittany, about where will we meet? You know, when you've got 16 people, you know, we talked about possibly the Grey County Council chamber being available. It's kind of midway between the southern end of this new board and the northern end of it. But you know, I'd be interested in the financial aspect of it too. And you know, how are we going to make those determinations? Is it going to be on a household basis? I think I've read in the past that it's done per household, which is likely a fair way of doing it, but I'm not sure if other members would like to participate in some of the discussions that you're going to be having with other senior members of the municipalities. We may want to have some input into what that looks like. Thanks.
Yeah. Go ahead,
And
Brittany.
you will at your home municipal, your home councils. All of the things that you've listed are all things that each council has to consider, meaning the budget that this board will have to take on. Included in that will be, you know, conferences, your remuneration, mileage, admin for the board. Now, we have to separate out the board from the existing billing model from the OPP. All of us are moving from either a Section 10 or 5.1 board. It's my understanding that the billing model will remain unchanged or very similar to what you've seen in the past. So that will remain on the municipal side. The board will have its own budget by virtue of it being a municipal service board. Now, what that means and what that looks like is up to each respective council. So the way that the regulation is written is the board doesn't really have any authority until it's established. But the problem is we don't have the training and we don't have the provincial appointees to establish the board. So all of the collective councils have to come together to make a joint decision on how this joint board is going to run. And all of that will be in this report. So if you can bear with me for like 2 weeks, then you'll start to see that report come around.
Just on that, there's the old saying, the cart before the horse. This is the prime example of that. And it is frustrating. What type of pull or authority is this board even going to have on any differences on the way we're policed and the way the province decides we're going to be policed? So that's things that also concern me in the future. But I just very appreciative of Georgian Bluffs and you girls on the time and I know our staff are so happy that you've kind of taken this and gone with it, but and you've already promised that you're not going anywhere. You're going to be here with us to try to get through this, and I'm glad of that. So just bear with the process and let's try to get through this and end up with a result. And financially, Georgian Bluffs is, in my opinion, if I have anything to say about it, will be compensated for the time and the efforts of yourselves and your buildings. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Go ahead, Kathy.
Thank you. I just wondered if I might ask one other question along the same lines. In this webinar I attended, it was made very clear to us that there are a few policies that need to be in place by April 1st. And they reiterated that 2 or 3 times. I believe one of them had to do with a new complaints procedure that will be coming to the board. That's new. So I think there were 3 of them listed. I'm looking through my notes to see if I made note of all of those. But I wonder, Brittany, would you be able to address those 2 or 3 policies that need to be done straight away and what the process is given that deadline, or is that not a hard deadline? Thank you.
Go ahead, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and through you to Councillor Coburn. Yes, so when we look at policies and procedures for development, the Act very clearly states which policies and procedures each board is expected to have. Now, through our relationship with OPP, our approach and our requirements are slightly different than those of a municipal board. And what I mean by that is if, for example, the city of Owen Sound has their own police force. So their municipal service board has to develop specific procedures and policies as to how that municipal service is going to run. Because the Grey Bruce Joint Detachment Board is through the OPP has all of those procedures and policies already established. So it's my understanding through Commander Richardson that because those procedures already exist, they already are in place, the board will have the opportunity to review said policies and procedures upon their establishment, but there's not a lot of work to be done prior to that April 1st deadline because they already exist.
Go ahead again, please.
Sorry, thanks, Brittany. My understanding is that there is a new complaints process for special constables, and that's the policy that would be brand new and not likely carried forward from the existing boards. So I may have gotten that wrong, but that was one that they definitely highlighted as being imperative in terms of getting it done right away. So am I misinterpreting that? It's apparently a whole new complaints procedure for this one particular aspect, and that we need an internal policy to deal with that, as well as the website reflecting that as well. Is that something that the current police board or the police services has put in place rather quickly as a result of this new complaints process?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I can't speak to that right on the spot, but I'm happy to follow up with Commander Richardson with specific reference to that policy and include that in my update as well.
Thank you. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. Just through you, Chair, to the clerk. With regards to, you mentioned conferences, and I know we're still being established and all of that. I know that there is the OAPSB coming up. Was there any parameter for us to attend that through, because now I'm understanding that will be coming through provincial, so their billing would possibly be coming through them. Am I understanding it right? And I know you don't maybe know all the answers, because the reason I'm asking is our mayor, he mentioned it to me, and I already, we only have a certain amount of conferences we can go to, so I've already had my 3 selected. However, I find that this would be very helpful. So I was just wondering what your thoughts were for that. And is that what you meant by conferences being and the billing and all that?
So yes and no. So let's separate out the two. The OPP billing model, that's for OPP services within your respective community. So the OPP bills each individual municipality per the existing contract that you have. Now, I can only speak for Georgian Bluffs, but I would like to assume that all of the contracts are made to the same vein, in that when we renewed our police services contract, the termination clause is 2025 or upon transition to the new board structure. So it is my understanding that along with moving to this joint structure, all contracts will be dissolved and thereby a new one created. So what that looks like, I don't know yet, but I have raised the question with the OPP. Now, when we look at conferences, that's a separate remuneration piece. So out of this update report and out of this implementation team that I've referenced being collective, management from each of your respective municipalities, we've discussed remuneration for the board and what that looks like. The intention of this board is to approach it from an equity standpoint, meaning all of you come to participate based on your collective interest in the Grey Bruce detachment area as a whole. While you're also there representing your respective communities, we're approaching this from a community policing perspective. And that means coming at it from a larger regional perspective rather than an individual municipal perspective. So when we look at remuneration, the board and the collective councils will have to determine how the board members will be remunerated. If they're remunerated per their home remuneration policy, or if the board establishes their own. And through that establishment of a remuneration policy, the conference piece will come up, meaning how much money does the board have to send members away? Does every member get to participate in every conference? So when we think of June, June will depend on how far we are in the joint detachment board process. If the board is established, then the board will have to establish its own budget for remuneration purposes, for conferencing purposes. If we're not established, then your municipal remuneration policies will apply in that your municipality will send you to that conference, not the board.
So just in understanding that, and that's where I'm looking at, it's almost potentially, I guess if you could almost use Grace Hobble as a example of how this is going to be funded, whether it's household. I can't remember, somebody here had already said, is it going to be on household? We don't know, and it'll almost be up to this board once we are established to figure that out, but we can't figure that out. So right now, if you want to go to a conference, I would suggest bringing it to your council, and we have a three conferencing in ours too, but we also allow the councillor to bring something forward, and we have a slush fund that we can make sure that people get to their conferences. So I would suggest your municipality would want to have you experienced and go to this conference, but in the future, I would suggest it'll be this board, and every municipality will be paying for a budget. We'll have a treasurer, we'll have the whole 9 yards on how this is good. Like, this is just getting started. This isn't, it's frustrating that they're expecting all these dates and deadlines, and when the province isn't even close to having those deadlines, and they're expecting us to have them. So it will be determined in the future, but yeah, if you want to get trained now by your own council. Should we be keeping track of those expenses as a council too, that goes to the new board? So is that something that, we would want to do, or is that something that we talk about at a later time? Is because
I think we should. I really do. We need a baseline. And without that, then it's just wide open, and we've had enough wide open comment. So I think that each one of us definitely keep records on things. It's going to have to come up in a meeting for discussion on all those items. So I would highly suggest we all keep track.
And if I may, through your chair, not to interject, but my treasurer and I have put together what is basically a draft budget that this board would likely have to observe when we get into conferences, mileage, attendance, etc. And all of those things will be presented to your collective councils. I know I'm kind of getting ahead of myself and reiterating all of this, but all of this will be presented to your councils for discussion. Nothing has been set in stone.
so, and I think we have to get ahead of ourselves. And are we allowed to get ahead of ourselves in determining? And I know this board was just put together or this portion to pick the representatives, but can we also have another mandate to try to figure out the financial end of it and a budgeting, and how we're going to do that before we have provincial members on here? Or is it no, do nothing until we have a provincial member on here, the members, and then we can do it? So, it'd be nice to be prepared as we move along instead of having everything thrown at us all at once.
So yes, that all of everything that we've talked about here today is in my report. I needed your community appointees before I could present that report to your council. So you will do all of the things essentially at one conversation with your respective councils. So you will appoint your community appointees. You will understand the budget implications. You'll understand the administrative considerations, where you will meet, etc., and an updated timeline. Um, as I say, we will be fine. No, we will have our ducks in a row by April 1st or by mid-April, depending on your respective council schedules. We will then be waiting for the provincial piece, but we will have accomplished everything that we need to.
Good.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. I certainly have no doubt, Brittany, that we'll have this all in order. As mentioned, by Jay, way Grace Sawble works is each member, we are not paid by Grace Sawble, we are paid by our individual municipality. That makes things a lot easier for the individual member if they're just adding something to their timesheet within their own municipality. From a finance position, if there's 9 of us that you don't have to be sending out checks to, I think it would be easier if we only have to have a budget that looks after our community and provincial appointees. I would suggest that would be easier, and certainly our own municipalities then have a good idea about what their member is costing them. The joint membership of the other body or the other members, then we're all going to have to participate in that. But if we can do it that way somehow, it's a lot easier for us. Just my thoughts.
Yeah, I agree. So, yeah, then we do it. If we can.
Yeah. Got a really good first meeting, I think. We've covered a lot of ground. And what you said, Mayor Mackey, is true. More questions than answers. But we've taken the first step, and a solid first step. And so I think at this time, instead of looking for setting a date in the future, I think that we should just allow Brittany to do the work that needs to be done. That can be forwarded to us. We can respond in the manner in which you did before by taking a poll of who can participate and be where. We'll get that in place. And as we've stated clearly today, we have done what we need to do at this time. And so we're on target from that aspect. So in that aspect of where we're at, what we've done, we're not going to set a date at this point. And I am going to call for a motion to adjourn. Thank you. And seconded.
Oh, just before we,
Okay.
did we need to report from our closed session? That's something I didn't hear us do on. I know in our procedures, we have to report from what we went into closed for after we come out of closed. And I don't believe, did we do that? I'm not sure.
The only thing that I did was I read the list of people that we had selected.
Not enough. I'm sorry for bringing that procedure up. I just wanted to make sure we're fine that closing the meeting before we did an actual.
Thank you. Through your chair. So just to reiterate for the public record, we went into closed session under open meeting exemption B of section 239(2) of the Municipal Act 2001. We went into closed session to discuss community applications and make selections.
Okay. Yes. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
Just don't have to cover
Thank you. With that then, declare the meeting adjourned. Thank you. More questions and answers.